Assalamu alaikum, and we continue in our reflection on the instruction of the student by Imam Zarnuji. We begin chapter 2. Chapter 2 is entitled The Purpose of Study. Imam Zarnuji rahimahullah, by entitling the chapter as such, is teaching us that study is not an end in itself, but is a means. It's a means to a noble end. And that noble end is to seek the pleasure of Allah, to seek the hereafter, to seek to benefit humanity, and to do it with integrity, and to lead a life which is worth living. Imam Zarnuji then teaches us that study is a means to an end, that study indeed has a purpose, that activity is goal-oriented, that activity is governed by rules. Imam Zarnuji rahimahullah initiates this chapter with a discussion on intention, and then he follows up that discussion by quoting a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In fact, he quotes the hadith of intention, thereby illustrating or making the point that intention has a purpose, intention has an aim, and that aim is the pleasure of Allah, and illustrating that what he is saying has a basis in the Sharia, and it is not just a concept derived from intellect alone. So we see in the Imam Zarnuji rahimahullah the effort to establish a foundation for his thought, so that his thought is predicated upon the Sharia. And we see that he reminds us of the importance of the life of the heart. He reminds us that our action should be oriented, should have a goal, should be purposeful. He says intention is necessary in the study of science, since every deed is rooted in intention, as attested to in the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Deeds are measured by their intentions. This is an authentic hadith. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has also said, "How many are the deeds which bear the image of the deeds of this world, but then through intention are counted among the deeds of the hereafter? And how many are the deeds which bear the image of the deeds of the hereafter, but then become, through their intention, evil among the deeds of this world?" It is necessary for the student in his quest for knowledge to strive for the pleasure of Allah, the abode of the hereafter, the removal of ignorance from himself and from the rest of the ignorant, the revival of the deen, and the survival of Islam. So that the purpose of study then has these noble goals which guide it. Immediately after seeking the pleasure of Allah, we are charged with correcting ourselves. We are charged with aiding and sustaining the Muslim community. Then we are reminded that it is impossible to live the life of piety except that life be based on study and understanding. Imam Zarnuji rahimahullah, he also tells us that the survival of Islam is predicated upon learning. The survival of Islam, not only its revival, the survival is continuity, So that the upliftment of Islam comes through knowledge, and the sustenance of Islam in deeds and in life and in community is by way of knowledge. But that way to knowledge must be governed by the principle of Tawheed, that we seek only the pleasure of Allah, that our intellect and our heart and our whole being is focused on that which is the hereafter, so that the dunya then becomes oriented to that goal of seeking the face of Allah, of seeking the pleasure of Allah, so that the heart is governed by the qibla of seeking the pleasure of Allah. And then he reminds us, the disciplined life and piety are not complete when there is ignorance. Of course, because this life of piety without knowledge opens itself up to superstition and innovation. And he warns us of that by saying it must be governed by knowledge. So the purpose of study is to seek the pleasure of Allah, to sustain ourselves and others through knowledge, and to live the good life.